Hi there, Gary here again, and I've been prompted to do a video on the use of dual controls. It came from a request from Jill, so this is for you, Jill, and a lot of people have been asking about dual controls as well, so hopefully it'll help all of you. I think what you need to remember about the dual controls is that a lot of people think that the dual controls just consist of the clutch and the brake. But really the main dual control is your instruction. So if your instruction's good, you shouldn't need to use a physical dual control. Now the physical dual controls aren't just classed as the clutch and the brake. It could be the steering, it could be any of the controls that you can see here, the heater controls for example, heated rear window. So anything that the pupil should be using because they're driving can be classed as a dual control. So for example, if you did use the heated rear screen instead of asking the pupil to use it, that would be classed as a use of a dual control. I know it sounds silly, but that's where it gets marked. So if the pupil should be doing something, ask them to do it. If the rear screen needs demisting, then ask them to press the button rather than you doing it for them. But we'll concern ourselves really with the main three dual controls, which is the steering, the clutch and the brake. A fourth one would be the gears, but it's very rare that you would need to use the gears really. If you think of the dual controls, the physical dual controls, to be used in an emergency. So when you come to, let's say the pupil's going too fast, you come to a situation where you feel like you might need to use the brake. First thing you need to do is try to use a verbal instruction to get the pupil to do it for themselves. So if you tell them to brake or brake firmly or stop, whatever it is you want them to do, if you say it first, give them a chance to respond, and then if they don't respond, then come in at the last second with your physical brake in this case. If you don't give them the chance to do it for themselves, then it's undermining their confidence by you taking over, and you really don't want to be using the brake or the clutch or the steering in situations where the pupil could handle it if you gave them an instruction. So use it as a last resort and just really to avoid any danger. So if they're going to crash into something, crash into the curb maybe, or getting a bit too close to a parked car, you might want to steer away from it. But whatever you do, always tell the pupil what you've done and why you've done it. It might be obvious to you, and you might think, well, it's obvious that I slowed the car down then, but to the pupil it might not be obvious. So always mention what you've done and why you've had to do it. So let's think about the steering. If you're going to need to use the steering for the pupil, what you'll find is that the pupil will grab the steering with superhuman strength, and so when you come to pull it or push it, it's going to be quite stiff to do. It's not going to be easy. So the way you grab the steering wheel is quite important. So we'll imagine that the pupil is steering too far to the right. Let's imagine that they're going across the centre line and heading towards oncoming traffic. You want to bring them back to the left. So the thing to do is to reach across with your right hand, grab the wheel at the top and pull it towards you. Even if the pupil's grabbing it quite tight, because they'll grab it and they'll fight you on it, you've got a lot of leverage there by pulling it towards you. If you went to the bottom and tried to push it away from you, you've not got very much pressure there and you'll soon lose control of it. So by grabbing it at the top, pulling it towards you, you've got the maximum amount of power there. At the same time, you could say to the pupil, let go of the wheel, because if they are grabbing it too tight, they just end up fighting you with it. So by telling them to let go, it gives you total control over the wheel. If they were going the opposite way, they were steering to the left and you wanted to steer to the right, then you would grab at the bottom and pull towards you. Again, grabbing it that way is going to give you a little bit more pressure than grabbing it that way. So try and hold it like that and pull it towards you. If you're seeing the fault early enough, you shouldn't need to do an awful lot of steering. It should only be a small correction. So it's not as if you're going to need to do lots of steering, like one complete turn. It should only be that small amount of steering that you would need to do to avoid an accident. At the same time as using the steering, you might need to use the brake. But as we said before, only use the brake if it's absolutely necessary. When it comes to the clutch really, let's imagine you're going to have to stop the car. You don't have to put the clutch down, you can allow the car to stall. The problem with putting the clutch down if you are stopping the car is that the pupil might still be on the gas. And so when you put the clutch down, the gas could be quite far down, so they could actually rev the engine so much that it could blow it. So the best thing to do if you need to stop the car in an emergency is stop it, but let it stall. And then if the pupil was on the gas, it's not going to matter. So bear that in mind, because it's quite an important lesson to remember. Quite an expensive one if you don't think about it. So if you're going to stop the car, I would just stop it, but not bother with the clutch. And then, because the car's stalled, you transfer the responsibility back to the pupil to get it restarted again. So handbrake neutral, restart the engine, and then they're back in control. If you have used the clutch because you knew it was okay to do that to stop the car, then your feet are going to be on the pedals. You would need to transfer the responsibility back to the pupil. So just tell them that you're going to transfer the responsibility back. Once they've got their feet on the pedals, you can say, right, I'm off the pedals, the control is yours. So whatever you do, always explain it, make sure the pupil knows what you've done, why you've done it. You probably need to pull over and talk about it if you've had to use dual controls, because it's probably a serious fault anyway. But never assume that the pupil knows that you've done something, and try not to use the dual controls just to help them a little bit. So if you feel like the car's going a little bit too fast but it's not dangerous, give a verbal instruction. If they're not responding to it, give a verbal instruction again. Only come in with the instruction with the dual control if it's absolutely necessary, and let them feel the fact that the car might be going too fast, and without them slowing it down it's not going to work, because they can't rely on you to do that for them all the time. So the dual controls, as in the physical dual controls, the clutch and the brake, shouldn't be used that often, and really you don't really want to be using them much at all, particularly in a test. In a Part 3 test, the best thing you can have on that marking sheet is a line that goes straight through that box that says use of dual controls, which means that you've not used them at all. If you've used them, they'll have to mark it up as to whether it was relevant or not, and it's only in rare situations where they'll put you in a position where they'll expect you to use them, and generally speaking that's if your instruction isn't good enough, because they'll push you to the point where they think, are you going to control this car if I come out of this junction, for example. So if your instruction's tight, you're not going to need to use them, but if you feel like it's necessary, don't be afraid of using them in a test situation, as long as it is relevant and you've explained why you've had to use them. So hopefully that explains a little bit more about the use of dual controls, and I'll be making a few more videos soon. See you soon.